Hey everybody, what's happening? Chinese here, also known as China L. Colston, actress and independent filmmaker here in Brooklyn. I'm joined with Sergio Mims in Chicago, and we're going to be doing a film reaction to the film Mandingo, set in 1975 in the South.
No, it came out in 75.
I'm sorry. Oh my God. Yes. No, it did not come out in 19. It was released in 1975.
Right.
And you want to take over, Sergio?
I'm going to give you a little bit of background. Then I want to talk about what you're going to say about it. Like I said, it's a movie came in 1975. It's starring James Mason, who was a great actor, but he could not do a Southern accent to save his life. And Perry King and Susan George, who was a big deal at the time, and Ken Norton, who younger people don't remember. Ken Norton was a boxer. He wasn't an actor. He was a boxer. And that's what he was famous for. His son became a baseball player, Ken Norton Jr.
Okay.
And it's based on a novel written by, I'm going to go into that because it's pretty interesting, by Kyle Ostott, which was written back in the late 50s. And it was a book that he wrote when he was 7 years old. And I read the book. And the book is pretty faithful to the movie, except the ending. The ending in the book is much different, you know? It's much more grimmer than the movie. I may go into that. But basically, it's set in the pre-bellum South, like around 1840, 1850.
It was after the Nat Turner Rebellion.
Okay, right. So that's makes about 1840. Okay. And, or 1850. And it's about this plantation called Falconhurst, which is a slave breeding plantation. They doesn't grow cotton. They don't grow crops. They breed slaves, you know, which then they sell to other plantation owners. That's the depravity of it, you know. I actually do not know if places like that actually existed, you know, plantations that just basically breeded slaves.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the things about this picture, and it's intentionally over the top, like the book is, and it's the fact that it kind of shows the depravity of white people. And actually, it was the first Hollywood movie. I can name some other pictures that weren't American, but it's the first Hollywood film that actually did show some of the brutalities of slavery. Because when you think before then, movies that were set in the South, Gone with the Wind, So Red the Rose, you can just go down the list. A Band of Angels, you can just go down the list of movies that were set in the pre-bellum South. Always distorted slavery, like as if slaves were happy, they were contented, the slave owners were kind and benevolent. This is one really, this may be good for a comment, for a talk, if you can find it. There's a movie
Sergio,
called,
let me interject. Let me read what per IMDb, what it now. So per IMDb, Mandingo, an 1840 slave owner trains one of his slaves to be bare knuckle fighter. That's what it says per IMDb. And director is Richard Fleischer. Writer.
I'll go into Richard Fleischer. He was, I think, one of the really great directors. If I named you some of the movies he directed, you know, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, Mr. Majestic, 10 Rillington Street, Fantastic Voyage, Dr. Dolittle, the original musical. I could just go down the list of the movies he directed. The Vikings, just some great movies. I mean, he had a long career from the 1940s all the way into the late 70s. Just a really fantastic career. But go
Well, I
ahead.
took notes. I took a lot of notes. I've never taken notes for my film reaction, but I was like, no, 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 no. I'm going to take notes.
Uh-huh.
Um,
Go ahead. Well, go ahead. What did you think?
okay.
It got you upset, didn't it?
Oh, that's an understatement. So what
Uh-huh.
I'm gonna say this, my observation. The very opening of the movie, it opens up on a landscape view of a plantation and an enslaved men and women lined up before the house to be examined in a dismissive way by a demon. I call him a demon trader. Also, Muddy Waters, the blues singer, opens up the movie singing a song called Born in This Time to Never Be Free. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, okay, that opening scene, for example, when that slave trader comes, do you recognize him, Paul Benedict?
I do, from the Jeffersons.
The Jeffersons, right. He was the crazy next door neighbor, right.
Yeah.
And what does he do? First thing he does, he makes one of the slaves bend over, pull down his pants, bend over, and he spreads his cheeks and then puts his hand under him. And I said, you never seen that before in a movie. That was what slavery was. You were dehumanized. You were
examined his anus.
Right. You were dehumanized. And you can't imagine what sensation this was. This was a pretty sizable budget Hollywood movie produced by Dino De Laurentiis, who was a big film producer for decades, released, co-financed by Paramount Pictures. It was a big deal, and you didn't see that before in movies, So yeah, it's a movie. You see, could you make a movie like this today? I don't know. Oh, or like, for example, okay, we'll just continue on because there's so many, I think, extraordinary scenes in this movie.
Yeah, and also what I also took note was both the enslaved person and the plantation owner reference the women as wenches, reference the babies as suckers, and reference the men as bucks. Also, is what I find so disturbing was one of the many of things, but they played the romantic flute music right before one of the slave plantation owner rapes the virgin enslaved woman as if it was a romantic love scene.
Well, I wouldn't go that far.
I would.
I didn't see that as being romantic, but
the music, the tone was very romantic.
We may go into we're gonna circle back to that.
Okay.
Okay, but it's like the very next scene, the dialogue is rough, right? The dialogue is very rough, right? So you have this scene when this quack doctor,
quack doctor,
and what's the line he says? She's hip, she's plumb hip, she's craven, and it's like she's in heat, like she's an animal, right?
Yes.
And then what does James Mason say? They never that doctor know about nigger nature.
Yes.
And the guy's a quack. He's a quack, right? And but once again, this movie again and again and again shows you how Black people were dehumanized and just what they were like chattel, in slavery. When the slave gets beat, for when he gets caught reading, remember? He gets caught reading, and then he's punished. He's beaten for that.
How is he beaten? How is it done, Sergio?
He's hung upside down, and you take a large paddle with holes in it, so it hurts more, and he keep hitting him on his rear end until he starts bleeding.
And he's naked.
Right, and that's what I said. Well, I should have said that. Yeah, he's hung upside down. And that was a shocker back then because we compare the Gone with the Wind to this, and Gone with the Wind came out 25 years earlier. No, is that right? No, it came out 30 years earlier. But
yes,
less than 30 years earlier, right? So, and that was a very romantic view of the South. All those movies had romantic views of the South. I was going to mention this one film called Way Down South, right? And in that picture, what happens is that it's about this young kid, right? Who his father owns a plantation, and the slaves are so happy working there that they actually jitterbug. Now this is the late 1930s. The movie came out like in 1939, right? I mean, literally the jitterbugging, right? During Jubilee, right? So his father gets killed, and the kid finds out that because his father had all these debts, he may be forced to sell off the slaves, right? And one of the slaves, when he hears that, tells the boy, "You're gonna sell us, master?" They're like, what, 1939? You know, this is a film we should talk about because the movie was co-written by Langston Hughes, right? Langston Hughes co-wrote this picture. Okay.
Oh.
Now you can say maybe he meant it's a satire, but maybe the director didn't know it. But going back to Mandingo, yeah, it's brutal. There's a fight scene in a movie where they decide to make money. Okay, that's from the book. That's in the book. I mean, the movie is really faithful to the book. That is the book where you have two black men who are literally have to fight to the death, right? And it ends horribly. It ends horribly.
Yes.
Right, for one of them.
Yes.
Right. But that's from the book. And it's like there's still men are being treated, black men and black women are being treated as less than human. Okay, so the big twist in this movie comes when the son, Hammond, played by Perry King, father says, it's time for you to marry. You can have all your bed wenches, your slave bed wenches, and all these kids, but it's time for you to marry a white woman and start having children who will then pass on this legacy.
Produce human blood, he said.
Yeah, with human blood, right? And he's I think James Mason says, when you make love to him, keep your drawers on, and do all that stuff. And then the son said, I don't know what to do with a white woman, right? Because he's just been having sex all these.
Because you're so used to raping black women, yeah.
Right. So he winds up marrying basically his cousin. Okay?
She was his cousin, yeah.
You're right. Man, I say once again, depravity is all incest, right? Who has a secret, right? Which we learned. So there are going to be spoilers here, folks. Spoilers. B word. There's going to be plot spoilers. So they get married, and this around the same time, he also buys Mead, the Mandingo slave, that basically he buys for fighting, but basically also to be a breeder, because Mandingos are the toughest and the strongest. So the idea, if you buy a Mandingo black man, then you have all these Mandingo slaves who can really work really hard, right? Like for example,
and well endowed.
Right. Well, we'll get into that. But the opening, you remember that opening scene when, once again, the slave trader is, examining him, and he makes that one run. He throws his stick and he runs and he brings it back. And he says a line like, Cicero, he's a good runner. He'll probably last 7 to 8 years. Wow. I'll get 7 to 8 years out of him before he's no good. So what happens is that, so once again, he marries this woman, he buys at the same time, marries his cousin. He gets married, buys a slave, he comes back. I remember first time I saw this picture when he came out, this got the biggest laugh, right? So the day after the wedding night, he's upset because clearly she's not a virgin, right? And and he's like, "Who had you?" I was pure. He said, the light, he said, "Maybe you was, but you weren't last night." That light always kills me. Maybe you was once, but you weren't last night. And then the twist is
she was appalled that he thought such a thing.
I'm pure. I was pure. I'm pure. And then the twist is that we find out she had been sleeping with her brother. Okay? Her brother, okay?
Who was jealous.
Right. Once again, this movie deals with the depravity of white people. they marry cousins, and then they're sleeping with brothers, and then that's what this one of the themes of this picture is all about. So to make a long story short, what eventually happens is that Hammond has this really was a bed wench played by Brenda Sykes, who he falls in love with. Now
She's so beautiful, so beautiful.
Right. Who did she marry? She didn't do that many movies. She married Gil Scott-Heron, I think.
I think so. She was a beautiful woman.
Yeah.
Or is. I don't know if she's still.
Yeah, I think she married Gil Scott-Heron. Okay. And so so he's spending more time with her and not with the wife, right? And she's more and more upset, right? Mm-hmm. And so and then the big problem comes when the father gives his son a necklace and a pair of earrings to give to his wife. But what does the son do? He gives the necklace to his wife, but he gives the earrings to Brenda Sykes, right? Mm-hmm. And of course, that it's a really great scene where they're at dinner and the wife is all happy because she's got the necklace, but then Brenda Sykes comes in with the earrings. Everything is falling.
Everything else is in slave clothes and the whole.
Right. And so Hammond leaves the plantation to sell off some more slaves. Mm-hmm. And while he's there and while he's gone, Susan George, what's her name, Blanche, decides, well, I'm going to get even with him. I'll sleep with Meade, right? Okay. Now, I got to tell you something.
She also whips the black enslaved.
Oh, that was before. Right, I forgot. She finds out that Brenda Sykes is pregnant. That happens before. Right. Mm-hmm. That's why he buys the earrings. Right. Okay. Gives her the earrings. Mm-hmm. And right, he beats her and she falls down the stairs. She has a miscarriage. Or as they call it in the movie, she slipped her sucker. Right. So anyway, getting back, Blanche decides to have sex with Meade, to sleep with Meade. And I got to tell you something. I'll never forget when I first saw the picture, when that movie opened, okay? And that scene happened. You know that like a steady face and they leap into the bed together? Okay. Brothers stood up and were yelling right on.
Why?
You had to be there. Yeah. Okay. You had to be there. I don't think that would happen today, but in the mid-70s, the idea of getting revenge by sleeping with the white woman, that was kind of a novel thing back then. The idea the brothers had back then. I mean, they were cheering. Okay.
So how is that a form of revenge? Anyway,
ask the guy back there. I don't know at the time. That was the 70s. It's not true today. Today that wouldn't happen. Back in the 70s, yeah. Okay. That was still sort of like back then, man, if we could just get white women, we really got it made. That was back then. Okay. Like I said, you had to be there.
Okay.
You had to be there. There was an attitude back then. Okay. So to make a long story short, she winds up getting pregnant. She hopes it's not black. The baby is black. And at first, well, as we call, when the doctor, the quack doctor, when he finds out the baby is black,
his wife tells him, the doctor's wife tells him,
he kills the baby, right? And but Hammond finds out, and in revenge, he poisons his wife, right? And then he gets this giant.
Is it like a rake or something?
No, it's like a kettle, a kettle, with boiling water, and he forces Meade to, basically he wants to boil him to death, right?
He had Meade do it, boil the water, and then get into the pot of boiling water.
Right, he had Meade boil him to death. When Meade fights, he takes a pitchfork, right? Mm-hmm. And stabs him to death with a pitchfork. The other slave, I forgot the character. It's played by Richard Ward.
Mims. They call him Mims.
Yeah.
Them.
Right. He grabs a gun, grabs a rifle to kill the son.
He
Right.
killed the father.
Instead, the father. Right. But he kills the father because the father starts insulting him. He's going to kill one or the other, right? He kills the father and runs off, right? And Hammond is left. The final set is Hammond left alone. His father is dead. His wife is dead. Meade is dead. And he's got nothing left, right? Okay, now in the book, what happens in the book is that Blanche's mother comes to visit her after she's had the baby, and she discovers the baby is black, and she kills her. She kills the baby, Blanche's mother.
Oh.
Right. And then what happens, and this is really grisly, what happens is that it's the same thing. Hammond makes Meade go into a pot, and he kills him, right? Mm-hmm. And he just keeps the water boiling until literally he turns into soup, right? And then the final scene in the book is that Hammond goes to his wife's grave and he just pours like this soup over her grave, right? And leaves. Okay, that's the book, right? You couldn't do that in the movie, but that was the book, right? Now the book was such a smash bestseller that there were sequels, but Osnat didn't write them. He basically oversaw them. Another writer wrote them, but there were a series of novels about the Falconhurst plantation that continued on after that, like mm-hmm. Drum and Child of the Sun. And I think Drum was also turned into a movie, but it's really bad, very bad, you know. But anyway.
But I have notes I wanted to share.
Right. But go ahead, because we got a lot to bring out in this movie, particularly the death of Cicero, which that's another thing that brought us cheering. Okay, go ahead.
All right. So my little notes here. The screenplay was by Norman Wexler.
Yeah. He was a big time screenwriter at that time.
I remember seeing his name in the credits a lot in the 70s. They offered $650 for a woman nursing with her newborn. The demon trader paid $2,500 for 3 enslaved adults. Mm-hmm. And I said also that I observed that the master's duty was to rape, but they call it pleasure, the enslaved woman.
No.
That was part of their duty. And I also wrote that the authorized rape by doctor and the wretched plantation owner. And then I referenced it. It said when the trader said, referring to Cicero, the enslaved black man, oh, he's fast and good for sugarcane. He might last 7 to 8 years. Yeah, and then he threw a branch and told him to fetch. And he did so. And they used little enslaved boys, like 8 years old, to fan them while the demons ate.
And also don't forget, when the quack doctor, James Mason has rheumatism, right? Oh, and the doctor tells Mason, he said, well, look, what you do is that you get one of those little black boy slaves and wrap him around your feet, right? So it'll drain. It sounds ridiculous, right? And but that was the attitude at the movie. The movie reflects the attitude at the time. These people are less than human, right? And so you have this quack doctor telling James Mason, look, this is what you do. You take one of those little black boys, you wrap him around your feet, have him wrap himself around your feet, and that will drain the rheumatism right out of you into him, right? And then there's one point when the kid, the little boy goes like, oh, that rheumatism is in me.
Oh, the rheumatism.
Yeah. Oh. They try to trick him, right? But once again, this movie, like I said, this movie was was really the first Hollywood movie that dealt with the brutality of slavery, right? It wasn't rose-colored. It wasn't happy slaves. It wasn't, what's that movie I wrote a piece on? It was Song of the South, right? The Disney film that Disney doesn't want to release anymore because it's too embarrassing, right? And once again, you have happy slaves in that movie. And I remember I got a lot of pushback, everything from white people who read it saying like, well, white people, he said, well, actually, this movie actually takes place after the Civil War. And so they're not slaves. I said, they're still living on a plantation, working the fields, right?
Yeah.
You know, and look what happened. I just saw a video today of this. It came out. It was this Georgia cop, some cop in Georgia, who was videotaped. He didn't know he was being videotaped, and he was talking about how good slavery was for Black people. And I saw this today. Okay, he's like, and he was fired, right? But he's like, we give them a roof over their head, we fed them, we put clothes on their back, and all they had to do was just work. Nowadays, they get everything for free and they don't work.
And what do you do, sir?
Right. You see, but the thing about it is that's an attitude that is still very prevalent today. This attitude that, well, slavery wasn't all that bad. Black people were working. And, if it wasn't for us, there'll be heathens, right? That's an attitude. So when you have decades of movies in which you have slaves who are happy and contented and always singing and joyful, that just fed into people's minds. So many people's minds that slavery wasn't a bad thing. It was. I understand why Black people keep complaining about slavery all the time. They worked fine for them. I don't understand what the problem is.
They also talked about bestiality as a form of healing, right? So the quack doctor says to the demon plantation owner, he says to him about his rheumatism, you can also sleep with a Mexican dog to drain out the rheumatism.
Yeah, and then
sleep with a dog.
It's like I said, could you make a movie like this today? I mean, okay, you had 12 Years a Slave. Yeah. You had Birth of a Nation. Okay. What's that one? Antebellum. With Janelle
Monáe.
Which was stupid. Did you see that?
I only saw the first episode.
No, Antebellum, the movie.
Oh no, I didn't see that. I'm sorry. There's another film. I'm sorry.
It's another slavery porn movie, but here's the thing, right? There's a twist in the movie. There's a twist in the plot, which, if you're paying attention, you could probably figure out what it is. Okay, but it's a twist, right? But even before the twist is revealed, I mean, once you figure out what the twist is, and I guarantee you probably can in the first 10 minutes, 50 minutes. Everything you see after that makes no sense at all. It makes no sense at all. And you just look at this movie saying, this is incredibly stupid. If this is a movie that wants to tell us about the reality of slavery, and I could call it slavery porn, once again, it's all kind of degradation and everything, on Black bodies, on Black people.
Of course.
When you figure out what the twist is, you're like, you gotta be kidding me. Really? Can you guess what the twist is? Okay.
No. What's the twist?
The twist is that everything that is happening today. That Black people are being kidnapped and then somehow put on this plantation, which is run by some white supremacists who are trying to recreate the old South.
Is there a revolt that happens, or are there passive Negroes?
Well, no. You see, it's just Janelle Monáe. She kind of escapes. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. No Black person would be in a situation like this. like no black person would be, okay, you were kidnapped. Okay, they don't even explain how did he kidnap these people and bring them down there. It's not even really explained. And I go like, well, okay, if you know that just yesterday you were walking down the street and now you're here in this plantation, what's the first thing you're going to do? I'm going to kill somebody. I'm going to escape. I'm going to get out of here, right? No, but everybody seems to be standing around and taking it. Oh, except Janelle Monáe, who's going to fight. Yeah, right.
Who wrote this?
Two white guys. Come on.
What a shocker.
Yeah. Sorry, I just did that because the cat was trying to scratch and but she's gone. Okay, that's when I did that. You said, what's going on? No.
So,
okay.
So another thing I noticed too was the enslaved mother told the virgin enslaved daughter that the rape from the master would be right and joyful, and to say thank you afterwards.
Well, okay. One of the controversies, aside from many of the controversial things in the movie, is that the movie to me also says that a lot of black people were brainwashed. A lot of black people were so traumatized, so brainwashed, so psychologically beat down that they actually thought that these people were good people. You know, I mean, you can say about Brenda Sexton's character. Brenda Sexton's character is like, really, you're gonna fall in love with this guy, you know, and think you're gonna have this happy life with him? No.
He set her straight, didn't he?
Well, yeah, she turns out she made a mistake. She finds out maybe too late.
When she tried to deter him from hurting me, the enslaved fighter.
Yeah.
She got a wake-up call, didn't she? He said, just because you sleep in my bed doesn't mean you get to tell me what to do. You still a slave.
Right. And then of course there's Cicero, the character Cicero, who
yes, please.
He basically escapes. It's a Nat Turner thing. He escapes. Well, let me rephrase.
He's the same enslaved person who ran and fetched the branch and brought it back.
But even beginning, he's branded with an R because he's a runner, right? In the beginning, right?
Pause. Wait. Let's not skate over that. Let's take that in. Say that again to the audience.
Right, because in the beginning, when he's being examined by the guy, right? Yes. There's an R on his back that's been branded on him because he's a runner. He keeps trying to escape.
Thank you for sharing that, because I've never known that to be a thing. So thank you.
Right. And so he's part of a slave rebellion. He escapes. They kill several white people. They kill a white family, and he's caught. Right.
With the help of who?
Well, Meade.
Another black enslaved person.
Well, okay. If Meade hadn't held on to him too long, he could have gotten away. Agreed. You know, right? He holds on to him and he keeps it. Brother, you're gonna have me killed? Let go of me. He lets him go, but damn, it's too late. Right. Too late. So they hang him, they lynch him, right? Yeah. But he gives this speech, you know.
I have it down here too.
Right. You know, if y'all hang me, kiss my ass. Brothers were standing up cheering when that scene came on.
Now Brothers that's the reason to stand up and cheer. Now he says
it also when Meade got the white woman. So anyway.
Wait, so he says he says right before like they're like preparing him to be lynched. And he says, you Peckerwoods were oppressed in your own land, and we was free, and you brought us here in chains. And he said, now we here, and you just better know this is as much of our land as it is yours. And after you hang me, kiss my ass. I was like, that's how you go out. That's how you go.
That's the point. If you go, you see, that's why.
And he told the guy who helped get him, basically bring him back. He said, you killed me. Just know if I die, it's you who killed me, because you stopped me from being free, from moving forward. So go ahead, Sergio.
Okay, when I was talking about, yeah, it's some okay. See, that's why I still say the '70s were the greatest decade ever, the greatest, because you were making Hollywood was making all these pictures, an independent producer. They were making all these films.
Mhm.
Part of it was because people were staying home. People were staying home watching TV. So what are we going to do to bring people out? Okay, and that's
Mm.
something that's been going on. They had been going on since the 1950s. It's like,
Mhm.
what can we do to get people out?
Mhm.
So they would start making all kinds of pictures, right?
Mhm.
And the rating system had only been in effect since 1960, late 1968, 69. So it still was new territory.
Yeah.
So now you could do anything you wanted to do. You could show anything you wanted to do. They were still exploring. Filmmakers and studios were still exploring what they could do. I mean, you look at a movie like The Devils, 1971, which could not be made today. It's not a horror film. There are horror elements, but The Devils is something. That's something else altogether. What The Devils was, it. I mean, Warner Brothers to this day will not release that picture again because of the controversy over that film. Um, so what happens is that you take a film like, okay, I said Hollywood pictures. There's a film called Tamango. Ever heard of it with Dorothy Dandridge?
No.
Okay, it's a French movie she made in
Okay.
'59,
Okay.
and it's about a slave rebellion
Mhm.
on a slave ship,
Mhm.
and she plays literally the bedwench of this slave trader who joins forces, eventually joins forces with the slaves, you know, who are rebelling, and it was a French movie, because Hollywood was not going to make a film like that back then in 1959. Wasn't going to happen. It barely got released in the United States. I mean, barely got released in the United States. They were going to show a film like that in 1959,
It was in
but
limited theaters.
huh?
It was in limited theaters.
It was probably maybe 2 or 3 theaters. You know, um, and that's the film to check out. You know, because or there's a movie Goodbye Uncle Tom, which is an Italian movie made in 1970,
Mhm.
which is about slavery,
Mhm.
and it's gruesome as hell, right? And it really, it's not perfect. It's got a lot of problems. Actually, I think you can find it on YouTube or Vimeo,
Yeah.
you know. But be forewarned, it's not. It's an ugly film.
You
But
know,
once that was an Italian movie, you know. Um,
something
they
I took note of was I my thinking is like watching this movie and how the plantation owners and the doctors were talking about the bed wenches, and they were really slave traders, were really the first United States pimps.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, and not only that, for a family, this uh, gosh, what's the name? The Maxwell family. They call the Maxwell family. They make a lot of money, right? They spend money and they make a lot of money, right?
Mm-hmm.
But they live in really squalid conditions. Look at that plantation they live in. It looks like it's falling apart, you know?
It does.
Actually, I love the photography in this movie
I
because
do too. I do too.
all the interiors are very dark because that's probably what they look like. They
Yeah.
went by candlelight. They were very dark,
Mm-hmm.
But it's a seedy looking place. It's
Mm-hmm.
seedy looking. It's falling
As are
apart.
their characters.
Right, the characters are falling. The house visually symbolizes what they are inside. And by the way, that's a real plantation in Louisiana that was also used for the movie I talked about, Band of Angels.
Mm-hmm.
Same one, but of course, it looks a whole lot better, a whole lot better. But yeah, that house is a reflection of the soul. The house, the interiors are dark.
Yes.
It kind of grimy looking. They don't even dress well. For
And
people who make a lot of money, they don't even dress well.
alcoholism was an issue too.
Right. They drink a lot. They're depraved. They're this movie was a big box office hit. This movie
I
it made
mean,
a lot of money at the box office.
the thing what I found interesting was like I wrote here, I'm like, so the enslaved black men who were considered like these masterful fighters, right? Wrestlers, UFC, the whole nine, right? This was the original form of boxing and wrestling. Boom. But what I thought was interesting was $1,000. A witness was willing to pay $1,000 in 1840 to witness them fighting. Somebody was willing to pay $4,500 for me, one of the enslaved fighters. Somebody offered $9,000 for the enslaved fighter and $1,500 for an enslaved woman. And then I wrote, the enslaved fighters used their strength, their brute, to fight to the death each other, but wasn't using their brute and strength to kill their oppressors, only to entertain them and make money for them.
And think of mine, that's $1840. I don't know what it would be like today. You know,
is that close to like $1 million?
Could be, yeah, could be.
$9,000 in 1840.
Yeah, it was a lot of money back. It's a lot of money today, actually. But it was a lot of money back then. There was a lot of money back then. Who had $9,000? That's why one of the things, these people made fortunes from Black people. That's why they could spend it. That's why they could spend it. That's why they can spend it so much. Spend so much for it. Like as if it's like water out of a faucet. And the other thing too is, I was gonna make a point, was oh gosh, what was it? Oh, the scene in the slave market when we first are introduced to mead, right?
The German woman.
Remember, this woman comes out, this German widow. That's from the book, right? This German widow comes out, and the first thing she does, she sticks her hand in his pants, right, to grab on. And one of the guys says, "Good Lord, woman," she says, "I don't buy the pig in the poke," you know. But she makes it very clear why she wants to buy him. She makes it very clear. And the guy said, "That's one of those German widows." You know, that's for her. But that's, once again, the book, the movie's is very faithful to the book, right? But
even Cicero said to Mead, I'd rather die than be a slave.
Yeah.
He left him with that, you know.
You know, and see, I'm gonna start laughing. Because okay, the final scene when he's in front of that big pot, right? Okay, and Mead is telling Hammond, he said, "Look, you don't know. I can't do. You don't know what he's saying. What he's trying to say is, look, that white woman took off her clothes and threw herself at me. What am I supposed to do? What was I supposed to do? She took off her clothes. She threw herself on me. What was that? You said I was going to walk out?" And the brother's like, "I understand it. Of course. What am I supposed to do?" And
she was in heat.
Right. But you know, later when towards the end, when the older slave woman, right, she's telling Mason, you know, what's been going on since they've been gone. He said, "Well, she called him 3 or 4 times."
She did, Lucretia dropped the dime on her. She dropped the dime on her.
Right. He called up to 3 or 4 times. Once wasn't enough. You know what they say? Once black, never back. You know, like she called him she can't call him all the time.
Wait, but let's talk about how she's before she raped him. She said, I want to tell you a story.
Well, no. Well, look. Wait a minute. Hold it. Wait a minute. I don't really consider that she raped him. He was very much a willing participant. Did he resist? Did he say no?
He did not say no.
He walked out the room?
No, he did not.
What did he do?
And why didn't he? Why didn't he?
Come on.
He was listen. She said to him, let me tell you a little story.
Right.
And basically her story was, if you don't have sex with me, I will lie and say you raped me.
Right.
Shout out to Ida B. Wells, the Red Record, okay, for making a book about how these mofo white wenches would lie on black men and say they raped them, although they willingly had sex with them. There is a history of that in this country.
How's that scene continue? They start kissing, and then he grabs her.
Which black men love to see.
Links into that bed. It's like, wow.
She couldn't get enough of him, could she, Sergio?
He couldn't get enough of her either. He just flew into that bed. Like, wow.
Wait, but remember too, when the white young plantation owner told when one of the enslaved women had a baby, he said, "Me, this is come see your baby," and Me didn't want to come see him.
Yeah.
Me is like he didn't want to hold him, but he ended up taking him out. But Me and the woman he impregnated was in fact his sister.
His sister. See, once again,
for breeding purposes.
Depravity. It doesn't matter. They're not human, right? They made meat.
But they'll have sex with you, although you're not human.
Sleep with his own sister. Even though the white people are doing the same thing. White guy sleeping with his sister. You know? But I love the picture. I love that film. I have it on Blu-ray. I love that picture.
What do you love about the narrative? What do you love about it? The movie or the narrative? The story?
I just think it all comes together. I think Richard Fleischer was a terrific director. He really was. He made so many classic movies. So many. His range was so wide-ranging. I mean, he made all kinds of. He did science fiction. He did drama. He did action. He did everything. You know, the Vikings. You know, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. You know, the Disney film. And he was the son of Max Fleischer, the guy who created Betty Boop, okay, cartoons.
And Betty Boop was actually a black woman.
Is that really true or not?
Yes, it's true. I did my research.
Because I've seen that picture, but that's a modern day picture.
No, it's true. I did my research. Okay. It's true.
Okay. But then again, what did it do? You know? So, but I think it's a whole package. I think it's the story, I think it's the direction, I think in the script. The acting is variable, okay? The acting may be the weakest thing about the picture. I don't think anybody's particularly, maybe Brenda Sykes is maybe the best thing in the film.
I think she was.
James Mason.
Yes.
Yeah, I think James Mason was a great actor. He was a great actor, but he's out of his element here, and you know, put your jumbles on. He can't do a British accent. Perry King was kind of hot at the time, and hot actor, but he's kind of wooden.
Which character is he?
The son.
Oh, the son.
Right. Susan George, she was big at that time. She was a Straw Dog. She's in a lot of pictures. She wasn't particularly great actress either, you know, but somebody wrote an article about this film I read years ago once, and he made the argument that there is no such thing as bad acting. He was referring to this picture. He said there's no such thing as bad acting, only bad casting. Okay? That if you had gotten maybe better actors for those roles, it probably would work. You know, this is a movie that a lot of people did not want to do. They had a hard time casting the role of Hammond. Hard time, you know. They went like Jeff Bridges, and they went to, everybody turned it down because of the subject matter. Originally, they wanted Jim Brown to play Meade, and Jim Brown said, "I'm not playing." Okay. And it was a film that was hard to make because a lot of people looked at the material and they were like, I don't know, you know, it's I don't know.
You know what really boggled my mind was like when Mim, the enslaved older gentleman who was hung upside down naked and whipped or paddled on a butt with spikes. Yeah. And
no, it wasn't spikes. It just had holes in it. It wasn't spikes.
Oh, it had holes. Okay. Well, a young enslaved boy would sit there and observe this black man being hung upside down and whipped as if he were a child. And so he's taking all this in, like it was like normalized for this young. So he's not even looking at this black man as a protector. It's like we're on the same level because you're being whipped like I would be whipped. And so I thought that was interesting to get into the psyche of his mind. And I thought it was really distressing that that same black man killed the father, right? The older man, and he had a rifle, but he did not kill the descendant. The descendant he doesn't have a weapon in his hand. Shoot the father and shoot him too, then run out. Why do you let the young man live?
Well, no, because I think the idea was that to let him suffer for what he has done. No. The old man is old anyway. He's going to die soon. He's an old man anyway.
So kill the young man.
You know, well, they could have. It could have left the old man left alive. They could have done it that way. I don't know. You have to talk to the screenwriter. Why did he decide to end it that way? Like I said, that's not the way the book ends. It's not the way the book ends at all. You know, father doesn't get killed, the son doesn't get killed. It's not like that in the book. Okay. So I don't know why.
It makes no sense. If both of them are oppressing you, you only kill one and you let the young person live. That makes no sense.
You know. But anywho, despite that, I still love the movie. I love it to death. I always defend it. I will always defend it. I've defended it. People who don't like it or people.
Why do you defend it?
Huh?
Why?
Oh, people are.
Because of the reality of the slave culture in it?
Well, no, they don't have a problem with 12 years a slave, you know. I think I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm talking about black women. I think they don't like getting nor to sleep with a white woman. I think that's what it comes down to it.
And you're not lying. You are not lying.
Because I have done this before. People, but look, when that movie opened and brothers were cheering, man, and applauding. Sisters were going, you had to be there.
You know what's so crazy to me about that reaction is so many black men were killed, lynched because they were accused of raping white women. But meanwhile, you're cheering and think that's a revolutionary act.
It's like, oh gosh, it's like, what's the guy's name? Nate Parker. Okay. Yes. Mm-hmm. A lot of brothers defended Nate Parker. They still defend Nate Parker. Mm-hmm. And I absolutely believe that the main reason why is because he's being punished for having sex with a white woman. Now, disregard it was rape or sexual abuse. They believe that the reason he's being punished is because he had sex with a white woman. That's what they believe. That's what they believe. That, you're coming down on him because the brother had sex with a white woman. And you don't like it.
So why is that? So brothers feel like that's like getting revenge by sleeping with a white woman? They feel empowered by that act?
That was okay. Back in that time, yeah, that was an attitude. At that time.
But it doesn't prevent you from being killed, though, sleeping with a white woman.
Well, no, but how do you get away with it? But it's like, okay, you ever see Slaughter with Jim Brown?
No.
Okay. In the movie, okay, mm-hmm. Okay, so it's the exploitation film. Okay, so the bad guy who's played by Rip Torn has this girlfriend played by Stella Stevens, right? And Rip Torn's the boss tells Stella Stevens in front of Rip Torn, get close to Slaughter to find out what he's planning to do. Okay, which means basically he's going to have this sex with him, right? Okay. So there is this scene where, excuse me a second.
Okay.
Come on. All right. Okay, I let her in. Okay, so.
Oh, thought you had a black cat. Okay.
No. It's kind of tabby.
Oh.
Hello. Hey. All right. So what happens is that, of course, she sleeps with him. Okay. several times. She sleeps with him. And Rip Torn loses his shit, right? Because his white girlfriend is sleeping with this black guy. And there's a scene later on in the movie where he beats the hell out of her because she's been sleeping with this black guy. And Jim Brown, of course, gets revenge. Eventually, he kills him and all that stuff. But that was so like the attitude, like, we can get back if we sleep with white women, right? Now, remember in 60s, 70s, even to the 80s, it was still kind of a big deal back then, you know? It's different today, much different today, okay? But it was a big deal back then, but it still is a big deal today. Remember, I think we talked about the fact that usually in the UK, interracial relationships is not considered a big deal. You see it everywhere, you know, in the UK. It's still a big deal here, but not so much in the UK.
Yeah.
Really not so much in the UK. It isn't, you know. You see a whole lot of biracial people in London, England, all over the place, right? Not a big deal, okay? I know some of my friends. I know, okay? But United States still is a big deal. But there was a time when, and also don't forget that up until the early 70s, actual interracial dating or relationships in movies were particularly taboo. You know, you think of guess who's coming to dinner. Okay. Mm-hmm. You look at it now, you kind of laugh at it's laughable, but that film was really considered, and it's corny, it's stodgy, it's very old-fashioned. It was considered really groundbreaking because it was a movie about a guy who's going to marry a white woman. And even though in the movie, you don't even see him kissing.
You don't.
You don't. I think they're like reflected in a rear view mirror. You don't see them. They come off like two friends. But it was considered a big deal at the time, you know? And when you look at, talk about Dorothy Dandridge. What's that movie she made?
Island in the Sun?
Island in the Sun. Thank you. Island in the Sun, right? Mm-hmm. Which is about two interracial relationships. But, you know, they're very tentative, you know? They walk around, they talk, and then like the white guy who Dorothy Dandridge riff, he never says, "I love you." He says something like, "You know, I've grown very fond of you." And that movie was a big hit back then because it was a taboo subject, but they don't do anything, you know? And actually the production code, before the ratings of the production code said that you couldn't have romantic interracial relationships on the screen. You couldn't show that, you know, which is why you had the tragic mulatto, like in Imitation of Life.
Oh my God, that movie.
That person.
We should do a film reaction to that movie.
That person is being punished for the sin her parents did. Okay.
Okay.
Now, you talking about the original version or the remake?
The remake in the 50s?
Yeah, the original version, 1930s.
With Juanita?
No, that's the remake. The original version, 1930s, with Louise Beavers.
No, not the original.
Right, because in the original, they actually have a light-skinned black actress playing the daughter who passes.
Really?
Yeah, Frida Washington.
Oh.
See, when they did in the 50s, they got a white actress who doesn't look, no way you can believe she was black.
Right? Exactly.
Right, but Frida Washington was a very light-skinned actress. But she only did maybe one or two movies, really. She was more of a stage performer.
Oh, okay.
But it's more believable because she looks like, and that goes into something else we can talk about later about, you know, actresses who pass for white in Hollywood, you know, and
what?
No, the reason I'm laughing is because, you know, when I was a kid, they always talk about was, you know, she's black. She's really passing. You know, so-and-so's black. She's really passing. Like, this is before your time. You ever heard of Dinah Shore?
Yes.
Okay. Always heard Dinah Shore was passing. Every time I was a kid, Dinah Shore was passing.
Really?
Okay. Go back and look at some pictures of Dinah Shore from the 1940s. Because she started her career back in the 40s, right? Oh, yeah. Clearly. She had work done later on in her career. She had work done. Because you look at her, you go like, okay.
Like Phyllis Diller.
No. You mean Carol Channing.
Carol Channing. I heard Carol Channing was passing.
Well, she later said, her grandfather was black, But once again, if you look at Carol Channing, like from the 1950s, oh, it's so obvious. I go like, wow. And also I heard, Ava Gardner. I heard Dorothy L'Amour, and the other thing, they're all Southerners. They all came from the South. Dinah Shore was from the South. Ava Gardner's from the South. Dorothy L'Amour was from Louisiana. Carol Channing's from the South. And I go like, yeah. You look at these women, and particularly if you look at them when they were younger, you're like,
yeah, your childhood photos would definitely out you.
Right. Yeah, hey, wait a minute. So like, okay. So anyway, we're going off the track, but that's Mandingo. And yeah, I'm gonna have to cut it here. But I think it's a fascinating picture. I think it has its flaws, Like I said, the acting is not particularly good, But I like I said, it's the one reason why I champion it is because it's a lurid story. It's lurid, and it's not pretty, and it really was the first Hollywood film that really dealt with the
brutality,
the debauchery, the cruelty, the evil of slavery. It really was. And no Hollywood film had ever really done that before. It always been glamorized or glossed over or just lied about, like I mentioned Band of Angels, the film with Sidney Poitier. The movie opens with a couple of slaves who are escaping from the plantation, and they're caught. And when they're brought back to the plantation, the slave owner says, "No, I don't want them punished. Just have them work in the fields over there." You're like, yeah, right. They're benevolent. I understand, And that movie came out the same year the Mandingo came out. I mean, I'm sorry, the same year that the book came out. The same year that the book came out. The novel Mandingo.
Wait, and real quick too, they tried to the writer tried to give the younger plantation owner some redeeming qualities. Like for example, when he was about to rape the enslaved black woman, and then his cousin was having sex with another enslaved black woman.
Well, before he beat her first, remember?
He beat her. He's like, "What are you doing? I don't like that." It's like, get the fuck out of here. You don't care. You ain't stopping.
That's part of the. I wouldn't be surprised if there's something that Perry Keene insisted in the script. Can you make my character a little more likable? I can see that. Give me some redeeming qualities. Don't make me all terribly horrible. I would like to see maybe the original draft or some of the original drafts. He probably was pretty terrible, So that's probably why that happened. Give me some redeeming qualities.
Right. Yeah. But I'm glad that I experienced the narrative because I am a descendant of those who were enslaved in the United States, and so and I'm a storyteller, so I need to see the brutality. I've read about it as well, but to see the brutality in a narrative form, not pretty, but like you said, the debauchery and the brutality of it.
Yeah, but that goes into a question.
And those who revolted, like Cicero was like, "Nah, fuck out of here. I'm gonna kill for you, and I'm gonna try to leave, and I'll make sure that some of y'all know how to read too."
Yeah, but then it goes into a question like, how often do we have to endure that? I've heard this all the time. People are saying, black people say, we don't want to see any more slave movies. We don't want to see any more slave movies,
understand that as well.
You know, oh, unless it's like Django, where he gets his revenge.
Because we don't have enough of those revolt narratives.
You see, okay, there was Birth of a Nation, but it failed. Can I like to see
When he rides off in the motherfucking sunset, okay, he gets away. Can we see that story?
Yeah, I like to see more of that.
I want to see that story.
Yeah, I really would like to see more of that. You know, leave it to. That's why, when Spike Lee criticized Django, and I was like, hey, you saw the movie, right? He kills everybody and he gets away with it. I gotta tell you a funny story. I'm a long time friend of Reggie Hubbard, who produced the picture. And I remember when they were shooting the film, I called him one day and he was on the set. He was on the set when they were shooting that big shootout,
Okay.
And I said, well, how's it going? And he said, well, we're shooting this. We've been in the last several days shooting this big shootout with Django. I said, well, how's it going? And he said, God, I'm sorry for that sound here, folks. Sorry for that.
Let me get rock and roll. Anyway.
Right. Hold on. I'm sorry, folks. Let me get rid of this. Damn it. Get rid of this thing. Oh, stop it. Oh, sorry, folks. Will you stop
No problem.
it? Okay. I'm sorry here. And so I said, how's it going? The thing is shooting. And he said, God, Quentin is using so much blood. I said, really? He said, oh God, so much fake blood and scripts we're using. So I said, okay. And then when I saw the picture and when that scene comes on, guess what I was saying? Oh God, so much blood. No, Jesus, I know what he was talking about. So much blood. But yeah, I'd like to see more of that. And you know what? I wish it had been a Black director who had made it.
Yeah.
I really would. I'd like to have seen a Black director have done that.
Yeah.
Instead of waiting for Quentin Tarantino to do it. How come Spike didn't make a film like that?
I think Carl Franklin could have done it.
Carl Franklin could have done it,
John Singleton?
Singleton perhaps could have, yeah.
Yeah, I think, definitely John Singleton.
But then Singleton...
He had a rebel spirit.
But here we go. Singleton makes, what's that movie called? Rosewood.
Yes.
And I remember watching Rosewood, and I said, nobody is going to see this picture. Nobody did. I said, nobody's going to see this film. It's a true story. I said, nobody's going to see this picture because nobody's going to see a movie about a group of a black town being massacred by white people who get away with it. Ain't going to happen. And white people are not going to watch that either. And nobody came to see it. That's why, I've had debates with people who wanted to see, who said there should be a movie about Tulsa, the Tulsa Wall Street.
Oh, Black Wall Street?
Black Wall Street. And I said, nobody's going to see a movie like that. Yes, I know it was in Watchmen, the TV show. But I said, nobody's going to see a movie about that. It's important. Nobody's going to see a movie in which Black people are being massacred and bombed by white people who get away with it. It's not gonna happen. Who's gonna watch that film? Who's gonna watch it? I don't want to come out of the movie just depressed and full of hate and just like, what am I gonna do?
Well, actually, I acted in the play Black Wall Street, and it had sold out shows every night.
Really?
Yes.
Okay. Well,
this is a balance of like Black people living an opulent, interdependent, economically empowered life, because that the first half of the play dealt with that, and then the second half dealt with like the massacre. So it was unfortunately it ended in tragedy, but it started out in a triumph manner. So
Yeah, well, by the way, I should add this. Our history is not all misery and doom and gloom.
No, it's
Should
not.
add that.
It's not.
It's not. I think a lot of people think it is, but it's not.
It's
You
more
know,
diverse than that. Yeah.
right? But I'm afraid too many black people think that's what it is. It's just misery and doom and gloom, and pain and all that stuff. You know. But it's not. Just like, well, I might as well mention this now. The movie I was telling you about before we started, Summer of Soul, which I've seen, which premiered at Sundance. I've seen it already. And it's about this extraordinary 4-day music festival that took place in New York City at the same time Woodstock was happening. Everybody knows about Woodstock. Nobody knows about this. And about this festival. And like every major black act, even from South Africa, even jazz, perform Mahalia Jackson, Stevie Wonder, Gladys Knight and the Pips, David Ruffin, Sly and the Family Stone, Fifth Dimension, um, everybody performed at this event. It was brought together by scotch tape and glue, but they pulled this thing off. And nobody knows about it.
Wow.
I mean, except for the people who attended. There's still people who attended and other. One guy at the end, this guy who was there as a child, and he cries at the end because it's still it's still one of the most extraordinary events he's ever been to. And the footage is fantastic. I mean, Mahalia Jackson brings down the roof. I mean, she is phenomenal. I mean, Mahalia Jackson was one of the greatest singers of all time, but she is phenomenal in this concert. Sly and the Family Stone, Stevie Wonder playing the keyboards, playing the drums, everything. And it's like, and they talk about that. At the end, they go like, why is it that our Black history keeps getting forgotten, overlooked?
Where can we still view it today?
View what?
Can we view that documentary? Was it
Like I said, premiered at Sundance. Hopefully it'll be picked up by a distributor.
Okay.
And it really should be in a theater because you need to see this movie with the sound, and because he did a masterful stereo remix of this thing, and it was taped for television, right? So evidently it was shown locally in the New York area. Okay. So they got all these tapes that evidently still exist. And he did a really fantastic stereo mix separation on this thing. It sounds like the sound present is phenomenal, because it was a mono when it was on TV. And it was in Harlem. What's this park that's in Harlem? There's a park in Harlem.
Marcus Garvey Park?
Is it called Marcus Garvey Park now?
There's Marcus Garvey Park. There's St. Nicholas Park.
Yeah.
Marcus Garvey usually has a lot of they have like a jazz festival there they have
maybe now it's called they call it something else. And if it's that park, it was called something else. Okay. It had a different name. It was the same. No, it wasn't called. It wasn't definitely called Marcus Garvey Park back then. Okay. But the mayor at the time was Mayor Lindsay. You live in New York now, and Lindsay was the mayor of New York in the late 60s and 70s. And he was a liberal Republican. Back when they had liberal Republicans. and he was the one who basically made this whole, there was the promoter. The promoter was this guy who was a lounge singer, but he was a hustler. He was a promoter, and he put everything together. How he managed to get all these people who performed under different music contracts to come and play at this festival, I don't know. It's a mystery. But hopefully people will be able to see it wider soon, because it's got to be seen to be believed. I was just, wow. And it was directed by Questlove.
Oh.
He directed this documentary.
From the Roots.
Right. And he directed this thing. Evidently, I don't. I don't think he was. No, I don't think he was. I don't know if he was even born yet. But no, he was. He wasn't around yet. But evidently, he knew about this. You know,
Mm-hmm.
and evidently has been spending his time putting this thing together. You know, this documentary together. So you see, but that's one aspect of Black history and Black cultural history that had been lost and forgotten.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even heard of this thing. I said, "You mean to tell me that there was this Black music festival at the same time with Woodstock?" Everybody knows about Woodstock. There was a documentary about Woodstock. You know, there have been movies that are set around Woodstock. But this other thing was going on at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And because it was, okay, yeah, Jimi Hendrix was at Woodstock. Okay, granted, right? But Sly and Family Stone were at this other thing, you know? And this one guy, I think the funniest line in the movie, there's one guy who was there, right? Who was the kid. He said, so it's when he was Sly Stone. And the audience was really apprehensive because just because Sly Stone was supposed to be there was no guarantee that Sly was going to show up.
That's his reputation, huh?
Right? And you know, about 2 years ago, we showed a documentary called In Search of Sly Stone about this guy. He's the filmmaker about he loves Sly Stone. He's an idol, right? So he spent 7 years just trying to meet him in person. And it's about this guy's journey. It's also about the history of Sly Stone, but also what he went through to try to meet Sly Stone, because Sly Stone is one of the great mysteries of all time. You know, there have been all kinds of stories about Sly Stone, some true, some false. You know, did Sly Stone, well, you know, sadly, Sly Stone never really made the money off his albums. He never did. Like a lot of Black artists, he didn't, you know. He got swindled by lawyers. He got swindled by, uh, you know, so many Black artists got ripped off, you know. And that's one of the great tragedies. You know, it's like, I don't know how many billions, maybe trillions of dollars that were stolen out of Black artists' hands, musicians' hands.
Which means that their children will never get a transfer of wealth because they never
No,
got the wealth.
no, they didn't get the dough. No, no. You know, and that's due today. How many rappers have been ripped off? Didn't know anything about contracts, you know. You know, like for example, I know we're going way off the topic here, but for example,
Exploitation is of Black people, you know, is still connected.
yes, still exploiting Black people. Like for example, if you sign a contract with a record company, never have the record company's lawyer negotiate the contract. You hire an outside in entertainment lawyer to do it. Because if you let the record company lawyer do it, what they're going to do? They're going to make a deal in favor of the record company.
In favor of the record company, yeah.
Number two, make sure that the record company pays for all extra expenses, because if you don't, they'll take it out of your royalties. Like recording time, like musicians you hire, like your clothes, like your car, like your house. They give it to you. You think you own it? No, you're paying out of your royalty. And in fact, they're taking it right out of you. Which is why so many, particularly rappers, they don't have any money. They act like they have money. They don't have any money. You know, because you got this car. Who gave you the car? The record company gave you the car? You know what? You're paying for the car. You know, you think you have a lot of money, you're making a fraction of what the record company is giving to you.
What did Prince say? Prince say in one of his videos, he's like, you know, the idea of the record company wanting to own your masters. He's like, excuse me for paraphrasing, but FedEx, when they deliver a package, they don't own the product; they just deliver the product, as does the record company.
Why do you think Prince removed his name for a while? You remember when he went under that symbol?
Slave.
Because Warner Brothers owned his name. They owned his name, Prince, which means that he broke away from Warner's. they couldn't, he couldn't use his own name.
And
He
that's
had to
his birth name
negotiate
too.
that, right? As I said, they own everything. Now Sony Music now owns all his songs. Now who's getting what from Sony?
And he didn't have any heirs, right?
No, he didn't have any. No. You know, who's getting that now? Then money from Sony? Where is that going to?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, of course, he has families, his relatives. Are they getting
his nieces
anything?
and nephews? Was he an only child?
Yeah, he was.
Oh, okay.
You know. Anywho, we're going off the subject, but it's still in the whole realm of exploitation of Black people.
Yeah.
From bingo to record companies, it's all still the eternal story of the exploitation of Black people.
Of us producing the work, but someone else profiting from it.
Right. Yeah. Right. Exactly.
Yeah. Well, I hope you all, if you have seen Mandingo, please chime in under the video how the movie impacted you, whether it be pros or cons or both. And hopefully you enjoyed our discussion. You know, Sergio's gonna always give you some film history connected to the films and films that are connected to the themes that we're discussing. So you guys have a great Saturday night. And again, Sergio, you did two commentaries, right?
Well, yeah. There is
Tyson.
Well, the one that's coming out this month comes out Tuesday, is for what we talked about last time, Man Called Adam.
Man Called Adam, a Blu-ray DVD.
Then go to RogerEbert.com and you can read my tribute to
Cicely Tyson.
The reason I was smiling a little, first of all, it was much longer. They cut out like the last 3 paragraphs. It was much longer, right? But the reason I'm laughing is because today's Saturday, okay? So Thursday, Brandon Ebert says, can you write a piece about Cicely Tyson? You know, because the turnover is very fast. You know, it's like, you know, the guy had some, and I said, I would love to do it. I can't because, you know, I got to watch these things from Sundance, and which I can see later on demand. I have a special code. I can go and watch. Okay. But I want to watch these films Sundance, and I don't think I'm up to it. I don't think I can do justice to it. I don't think I can do it. And he said, Sergio, you're the only person who could do it. And I said, damn, you got me. Okay. Okay. He said, really, I need you. You're the only person who could do this. We got nobody.
Yeah, you the shit, Sergio.
And I mean, they have Black writers. But still, even they're Black writers.
But you have a special knowledge of history and
for
years involved in film history.
For example, I have to talk about her history. Her Cicely Tyson's history, right? And everybody thinks of it when she did Sounder, okay? But she had been acting 15 years before, okay? And her the part that really brought her to national attention was the TV show that she did called East Side, West Side, which was in the early 60s. And that was with George C. Scott. And it was shot in New York City. He played a social worker, okay, in the show, right? And she played the secretary. But later on in the show, she also became a social worker. Now, actually, she was dropped from the show before, it only lasted 1 season. She was dropped from the show before the end of the season, when they tried to retool it and everything. But 2 things are really important about that, and it goes to her. First of all, she was the first Black actress to have a role in a dramatic TV show. Now, today may not think as much of it, but that was a big deal. Now, there have been Black women in comedies like Amos and Andy or Beulah. Okay, but in a dramatic TV show, she was the first Black actress. Okay. The second thing was the controversy over her hair, because she wore a short afro in that show. Now remember, this show came out it was 1963 to 1964. Okay? Black women were not wearing afros in 1963. It just wasn't done, you know? Maybe a few avant-garde types, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Few artistic types, maybe in New York, okay? You know, but that wasn't done, okay? And it caused a firestorm, particularly among Black women.
Okay.
I can't believe she's making herself looking like some African. I can't believe that. You know, and you may laugh. Yeah, you can laugh, but that was the attitude. Remember, I'm not talking 1960, I'm not talking 1970s, 1963. Okay?
Yeah.
Black women were not wearing naturals. And if she was, people were like, what's wrong with her? It wasn't done. You know? How are we going to be accepted if we're going around looking like that? If we don't straighten our hair? How are we going to be accepted by society? And so when she did that, that was her. And you know what? To her credit, I mean, the producer backed her, David Susskind, who was a big progressive TV producer at the time. He backed her. I'm sure she got a lot of grief from the studio, from the network, a lot of grief from the network. And I'm sure she was flooded with letters and telegram said, get that off your head and wear something, you know. And it's still true today.
And it's still
It's
true
still
today.
true. I mean,
Yes.
you know, when you see a woman, who's that gymnast, Gabby Douglas?
Mm-hmm.
Gabby does hair, and Black women keep criticizing her hair. And I go like, in this day and age, you're still criticizing Black women about her hair? Wow. We have not progressed.
Yeah. We have, I mean, where exhibiting your natural texture is way more celebrated today among like the social media, in the social media world. Like it's very celebrated, more way, like it's like a resurgence of it, like from the 70s. So there are a lot of women wearing twists, and Viola Davis, when she wore her hair and it's not, or she showcased her natural texture, you know, going to an award ceremony, everybody was celebrating, you know, Black girl magic on social media. So in many ways, wearing, exhibiting your natural texture is celebrated, but there's still pockets of Black women who feel like that's uncouth and it's not a great representation of femininity.
But here's something else too. Why should it be even a big deal today? You said with Viola Davis, and I go like, well, yeah, because my attitude is like, yeah, okay, why's that such a big deal? Really? It still is?
It still is, because some women still deem hair in its altered straight state is more appealing and more digestible in corporate America.
You mean it have it straight and right, you know?
Yeah, to have it altered and straightened. I think
Right.
it's okay to diversify your hair texture because you just want a different style. But the idea of that's the only representation of aesthetic beauty is fucking stupid.
Yeah, you know, it's just wow. Um,
But
uh,
definitely, I want to definitely say shout out to Cicely Tyson's film and theater legacy, her acting legacy. Rest in peace to her.
yeah, you know, I mean, like I said, the reaction I've been getting so far from people had been really, really great. You know, people say this is a really great piece you wrote,
Oh,
even though the last three paragraphs have been cut off. But
that's
but I was like, well, you get turned into the editor can do what they want. I understand that. But I was like, but still, I was like, when they asked me, I said, I can't do it because am I worthy enough to write about her? Really?
Mhm.
Am I worthy enough to write about it? I don't know where to begin, you know? Write about it. And it turned out I wrote like 2,500 words originally, over 2,500 words, which is long. That's long, right? But once you start, you can't stop because there's so much you got to talk about her, you know? You know, um, but you know, and of course I had to put in A Man Called Adam. I had to put in once again. I had to put in were the very, very few instances where you see a black couple, a romantic couple in the 1960s.
And they're both dark skinned.
Right. In the 1960s.
Yeah.
There was okay, let me see. Nothing But a Man, maybe. Okay.
But
Nothing But a Man.
they're both caramel. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yes, yes.
Yeah, romantic. Not in the usual sense, but it's romantic.
Mm-hmm.
But that's tough. You know, there was in the 1960s, there's the Pointy film, For Love of Ivy.
For Love of
Okay.
Ivy, Sidney Poitier, and Abby Lincoln.
But
Yeah.
you see, but you got to think, you got to stretch. You got to, well, what else happened in the 60s?
And then Warm December that we mentioned before.
But that's the 70s.
Oh, that's the 70s. Oh,
Yeah,
yes, you're right. Yeah,
70s.
you're right.
But I'm thinking in the 60s.
In the 60s.
Not a lot.
Okay.
Not a lot, right? So, and there's something which I quote. Thank God I found this quote, right? Well, she was talking about when she did, and I said, this was her calling, right? She was on a publicity tour for Sounder, okay?
I loved her performance in Sounder.
And she said, she was talking to this white interviewer, and the interviewer told her, said, you know, I was really uncomfortable in those scenes with the father and his son. And she said, why? He said, because he kept calling him daddy. And she said, well, you have children? He said, yeah. What do they call you? Well, they call me daddy. And she said, my God, this guy
is a fucking idiot.
We're not human. He thinks that black people are not human, that black people are not capable of loving and being caring fathers or loving one another. And she said, right there, I knew that my mission, you know, that was my calling, that I didn't have the luxury of just being an actress, that everything I had to do had to be basically made a statement about who we are as people, right? And so, so that's in my piece. Go to rogerebert.com. You can see it. You know, you can read it. That quote is in my article. Isn't it amazing? I mean, I thank God I came across that quote, because it's like, wow, you know, like we don't think they're human. And so that's what she was always trying to fight against, the fact that we're human beings capable of anything else, like capable of every expression like everybody else. Mm-hmm. We're not subhuman. We're not some kind of animals. Excuse me just a second. Mm-hmm. Okay, go away. She wants to keep looking out the window. I mean, looking out the open window. That's what I mean. Like you see a bird out there or something? What is it? What do you want? So, so there you go. That's it. I think we've done enough. Oh gosh, I'm way past my time.
Yes. All right, so folks, have a happy Saturday night, and I hope you enjoy our discussion around this movie Mandingo and the other films connected to the themes and the whole nine. Check out Sergio's article on RogerEbert.com. Is that it?
Yeah.
RogerEbert.com. He did a piece on Cissy Tyson's legacy. Okay, and you can check out my film Sweet Thing on my website, and Dark Seed on Amazon Prime. All right, take care. Peace. Chinese.
Bye-bye.